What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football sports betting and NASCAR home here at ThinkPigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert, joining me to break down the Daytona 500, the inaugural race of the NASCAR season. I mean, I guess there's some other stuff that's been happening. Obviously, the road courses last week. The duels are tonight. The second one getting rained out has really thrown a wrench into our recording plans. Brian and I were trying to be proactive and let's wait till it's over. Let's wait till everything settles. Unfortunately, real life's kind of getting in the way, and we have to get up for day jobs and that kind of stuff. So we're recording during lap 17. So if anything crazy happens between now and the end of the podcast, we'll note it. Also, at Notorious KRO, at Greasy Rules 14, at FPAOP on Twitter. We'll try and update anything. And if anything changes, if we some things, I'm actually going to effort looking up the Alex Bowman stuff because he had engine issues at the end of the first race. And if he can't,
I think if they have to change the engine, then he has to be pushed to the back. But if he can repair it, he still starts on the pole.
But anyways, before we dive into our bets, our top threes, top fives, outrights, we'll also be dabbling into the DFS space this season. For those that you joined us, we were almost exclusively betting last year. We're gonna give you guys some DFS thoughts as well. Obviously, there's a lot of crossover, right? I mean, in terms of outrights, it might not matter as much, but for our finishing places, we'll be looking at that for sure. But before we do all that, Brian Twining, how's it going?
Oh, man, it's going great. Like you said, we've been kind of waiting with bated breath here for this second dual race to even just get started. But, even with the delay, it's actually becoming more apparent that I think we have become NASCAR fans, not just using this as a in-between for football season anymore.
Yeah. No, before it was oh, we don't have any other sports, so let's dive into NASCAR and keep ourselves entertained. And now we're like, oh, good, football's over. Now we can dive into some NASCAR.
Yes, sir.
I did not think that's how it would go, but here we are heading into year two. So let's start out with the betting side, Brian. Always looking for a way to take advantage of the market. We are looking at Denny Hamlin as your favorite, and he is the defending champ at 8-1. 2-1 for a top three. DraftKings has not released top 5, top 10. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll also try and give you some Will Hill and other numbers if something garners our interest, but we're going to use DraftKings for the majority of the odds. It's just easy to find what we're looking for. As you can see, a lot of names there. Brian, let's start the way we always do. Let's start. I mean, obviously, there's only one name inside that top 10, so we can't really go there. But, let's the top of the board, anything inside, 14-1. What are your initial thoughts, initial reads? Is there anyone in that range that garners your interest? Obviously, we went through some names during our preview show, but now that it's Daytona week, where's your head at?
Well, I mean, for me, I think obviously I hate doing this, but I like Denny Hamlin here at 8-1 odds to, take home the crown again here. I think getting 8-1 for an outright is tremendous value, albeit at a track like Daytona where there is just so much stuff that goes on. With looking in that first few guys, you look at Kyle Busch, he's never really had tremendous success here. He has 3 top threes, but every other time he's been 20 or worse. Ryan Blaney has been so-so, and then Brad Keselowski, much like Joey Logano last year, was the bane of my existence, and I just couldn't back him at any moment and get it right. And the one thing I will say about Denny Hamlin at that 8-1 number that is a little worrisome is after the first duel is he'll be starting the race, I believe, in 27th position. And I did a little research, and over the last 20 years of the Daytona 500, there hasn't been a single winner that started the race from the 20th through 31st position at the get-go. 14 of the 20 winners started the race 15th or better. Only 3 winners, this is super interesting, have started from the first 2 rows, so anybody in places 1 through 4. And then there's been 6 of the last 10 have started in the top 10. So you're kind of looking at a trend of the last few years where if you're not starting near the front of the field here, you're more than likely not going to win. So that kind of puts Hamlin at a disadvantage, especially being the favorite here. But I do think that out of all these guys, he has the best chance to buck that trend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. And if you look at, I'm looking at over the last, 66 years, basically, there's been a lot of interesting names. A William Byron popped up, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, even Justin Haley. Like Denny Hamlin obviously has two of them, but it's not a lot of the big names, not a lot of the big dogs. Joey Logano has had a couple years where he's been awesome, and then the rest of the time he's been an absolute train wreck. So if you want to get in on him at 12-1, I like him for an outright. I don't love him for kind of the top 3, top 5. And when we get into DFS, we'll talk about that some more. But him and Brad Keselowski, they're priced up like they're the contenders at this race, and I just don't feel like they're there.
Yeah, no, neither of those two have been a model of consistency at this track in particular, or for that matter, super speedways. So that's where this race is one of the most difficult to kind of prognosticate because of all the stuff that happens going through it. And if you watch NASCAR, something that I kind of learned last year at these super speedways is you can have a changing of the top 10, not just the first 2 spots within a matter of one lap if guys line up in a single file and they get all the momentum coming down the straightaway. So like this is a race where your guy could be winning for the majority of it, and the last couple laps, they could just have a group of cars that decides to team up, and your guy goes from first all the way back into 8th, 9th, 10th place in the snap of a finger. So,
yeah, we had some fun betting some outrights last year where basically within a lap or two they were the leader, and then all of a sudden they don't even cash a top 5 or a top 10, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like this is so frustrating, but that's them. That's how they go. That's why everybody's priced up the way they are. Digging a little deeper, obviously we got the return of Kyle Larson. That should be interesting. He was okay tonight in the duel. Brian, overall, like I'm trying to figure out in my head how to evaluate. Obviously, we got people switching to new cars. Alex Bowman switching to the 48. Our boy Eric Jones in a new ride. A whole bunch of names on the move. How do you evaluate some of these guys? Obviously, we've seen some of these cars before, but even Bubba Wallace, brand new ride, brand new vehicle. We were watching Daniel Suarez in the Duel 1. He's in a new car. I feel like for him, he was like, I'm used to my car not being able to be fast enough to go around people. Like he's usually like just kind of plodding in the back. So maybe our Daniel Suarez excitement will come a little more to fruition this year. But like, how are you approaching, especially in these early races? Are you betting any of these guys in new rides? Or are you only looking for maybe established vehicles and guys that have done well at tracks? Or where's your head at from targeting kind of some of these people switching seats?
Well, I mean, I think the first guy that kind of jumps out for me is a Christopher Bell, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's taking over for Eric Jones, and we saw Eric Jones. He showed spurts of being fantastic last season. And we saw this year he's taken over for Bubba Wallace's spot there, but Christopher Bell is taking a jump up in ride, and we saw him last year, Christopher Bell, towards the back end of the season, really show really good form, and now he has a better vehicle. It's going to be faster, it's going to be stronger in these bigger tracks. So he's a guy that when the top 5s and the top 10 plays come out, that I'll be looking at, definitely betting. And then I think like an Alex Bowman, for instance, like this guy last year was one of my favorite drivers to bet. And now he's taking over in one of the most known vehicles on the track over the last 2 decades. And if everything is okay with his engine, starting from the pole here, I know I mentioned like no pole sitter has won in at least 20 years, but he's the kind of driver that could run, start to finish it from the lead and take home the prize. And then, of course, obviously, we talked about this pre-race, but like one of my favorite drivers coming into last year, and then obviously this year taking that step up with that 2311, so he's getting more recognition now. That's Bubba Wallace. Like he did admirably well for that Richard Petty team. He does well here at Daytona. He has a history of success here. He has a 5th place finish last season. His average finishing 15th or better here at this track. So this is a guy that, with a new vehicle that they're putting all of their money into, I think has a chance to surprise some people, especially here early on.
Yeah, so I feel like if you believe in Bubba Wallace's talent, if you believe in that Team Jordan is investing their money wisely and has a nice car for him, I feel like you're going to be able to get some nice prices on him early in the season. Now,
Yes.
you could be in theory buying a little high, knowing that, well, the car never really got to fruition. It never really got to where they wanted it, and they had a lot of issues off the jump, and maybe you're paying a little bit more for the Wallace name, for the Jordan name. But there is going to be potential value there. I also wonder if there's potential value with my boy, Eric Jones. Like, I'm looking at him in this race, obviously a place where he has had some success. He won back in July of 2018, then February of 2019. Obviously switching to a new ride, switching to that Bubba Wallace ride, and a car that had some success. So, you combine both of those two factors, maybe you can spark a little something. Alex Bowman is a great price if he ends up staying on the pole and running where he expects. We'll got to keep an eye on the engine. If that engine needs to be swapped out, then he's going to go from a guy that I might bet in the outright market to a guy that'll be playing in DFS. Among the other names we haven't dove into, any other names? Party Marty Truex, William Byron. I mean, he has some recent form at this track. Where's your head going?
I mean, like we were talking about, any of these guys have a shot here to win this race. And we saw it in the first duel here with Eric Almirola taking home the crown there. He's a guy that you and I both liked extremely a lot. That didn't make any sense. That we liked a lot last year. And just to show you, like, it was extremely a lot. So he has the talent. He doesn't really have the history here at this track, but he showed in that first duel that, another year forward, maybe they've learned a little more stuff about this track, about their team. And, I think he's a guy that could take the step forward this year as well and get off on the right foot, especially for that number at 16-1 here. Like, that's a great number.
Yeah. William Byron is somebody that is interesting to me. Obviously, won this race last year. But if you look at his numbers, he won the August race, he won the July, or he got second in the July race. In the February races, 23rd, 32nd, 21-40. Not exactly the finishes you're looking for. Obviously, he's run, significantly better. He's currently battling Austin Dillon for number 1 in the Duel 2. So he's obviously looking a lot more comfortable this year. But he is somebody at 18-1 that I will be taking a look at and seeing where he can finish and kind of where he's at. Because as you mentioned, the guy on the pole doesn't always win. So maybe William Byron will be right there, and he can be the guy that finishes the race strong. Brian, let's dig a little deeper like we always like to do. Is there any names as we go beyond the 20, 22 into the 30s, into the 40s, even lower than that? Where are we digging?
I mean, so this is a name that we mentioned a lot. He's an oldie but a goodie. Like, he's one of the veterans on the series still, and that's a Ryan Newman. He's 35-1 to win this race, and this is a dude that prior to last season, he had 2 straight top 5 finishes here, or 2 straight and 5 top 10s in the last 6. So this guy runs really well here at Daytona. He finished 3rd in the first duel tonight. So he's shown he still has it. His career average finish at Daytona is 13th. And, the history here and just being and knowing how to drive at this track, I think will be, extremely important here. And then the other guy for me is just a long shot. I'll definitely be placing like $5 on it. It's got to be Michael McDowell. He's 66-1. This guy has 4 straight top 14 finishes. In the last 10 races, 9 of 10 are inside the top 15. 4 top 10s in the last 10 races. This guy is just it's just screaming value at that number. And when those top 5s and top 10s come out, I will definitely be wagering on him.
Yeah, he really rounded into form last year, and I was actually just looking. They haven't released all the props over on DraftKings, but they have McDowell versus Jamie McMurray at even money, basically, both -115. I like Michael McDowell quite a bit with you, so I like that. I like that call a lot. Eric Jones is sitting there just screaming my name. These top 5, top 10s are great ways to kind of build your bankroll and give yourself some consistency over the course, because like betting golf, like you picking winners is awesome if you could do it, but it's a lot harder to consistently pick winners where if you're doing top 3s, top 5s, top 10s, you can kind of supplement some of your outrights with those numbers. So Brian, I think that will cover us from the betting perspective. Where's your money going? Who you allocating capital to this week?
Well, and we're talking DFS. So
no, I mean, let's do our betting cards and then we'll hop over.
Okay.
DFS.
All right. So I'm probably going to be wagering, couple dollars on Hamlin to take home the victory. I like him there, but I think my best bet is going to be, whenever it gets released, my best bet is going to be Michael McDowell top 10.
I like it.
Whatever number that is, that'll be my favorite wager.
Because we can look at because he is 16-1 for a top 3. So that means he'll probably be like 8-1 for top 5, and
I was gonna say 4-1, 3.5,
3 or 4-1 for a top 10. That's pretty solid. And as I mentioned, I like that head-to-head Jamie McMurray. Like, there's going to be some interesting matchups for him. I think some ways for him to take advantage of it. I'm going to be looking at Eric Jones for probably top 5. I might get a little crazy and go top 3. I trust him at this track. This is a car that's done well at this track. We'll see how it all comes together. And there's a lot of interesting moving parts. As you mentioned, the Ryan Newman, like top 5, top 10 is really compelling. I don't love betting favorites, but we did have a lot of success betting near the top of the board. And I think, Denny Hamlin is interesting at that price. But especially compared to like guys that are kind of, 10 or 12 right behind him that don't have anywhere near the same success as Hamlin at this track. So,
I mean, Hamlin has 3 wins here in the last 10 races, and nobody else has more than 1. So,
yeah, and I'm going to keep a close eye on Kyle Larson too. Obviously, there's 23 to go in the duel, so we'll see. These numbers might move around a little bit, so you might be able to get a little more juice on a guy you like. And obviously, if you're watching this, it's probably the day after. So, go out, check those numbers. If, like I said, if you want to hit us up on Twitter, say, hey, the number is this now. What do you think? We're happy to give you some feedback. Let's shift over. Let's talk a little DraftKings and kind of we're going to give you some guys that we're going to be looking at. As I mentioned, if Alex Bowman ends up in the back, he's going to be a guy that will end up in my lineups. But Brian, let's take a look at your DFS core for the week. And we'll start with Denny Hamlin at 10,400.
Yeah, I'm definitely paying up for that number, being he is the favorite to win the race. I like him to compete, to stay near the top of the field the entirety of the day. And the fact that he's getting such a favorable starting spot. I mean, he's starting at 27th, which gives so much opportunity for those bonus points of moving up positions. And if he were to wind up winning the race, he'll be well worth the price of paying up for him. And then, like I said, a guy like Bubba Wallace, who is very successful here at only 7,400. Ryan Newman, a lot of success. The one thing I will say about Newman that kind of worries me now is the fact that he'll be starting in the 4th row at number 7. So, there's a little bit more risk that involved with him losing spots and so forth. Yeah. But then you got a guy like Michael McDowell starting 19th. I think I saw in my research over the last 20 years, there's been 2 or 3 winners from that spot. So, history is kind of on my side there, and the fact that he's one of the cheapest guys who is in the field right now, it gives you tremendous opportunity to pay up for the last two guys on your lineup. Like for me, I'll be looking at like adding a Joey Logano or even a Chase Elliott because you have the cap to do so, and then adding those another middle tier guy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, I think starting with two 10K guys or like even Logano or Harvick at, I don't really love either of those guys, but like, I think you have to go at least one 10K and probably two if you could do it. Like I'm looking at starting Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and loving how my teams are starting out.
Yeah, I think definitely too, to see where Blaney starts, because at times last year he was the fastest car on the series. So especially at Daytona, that plays a huge role.
So let's go to my DFS core. I'm right there with you with Hamlin. I think he is a guy you have to play this week just because of the starting position, because of the success, and obviously if you can get that win all over it. I like Party Marty Truex, 9,300. Another driver who's had success, who's all reliable, should be just fine. My boy Eric Jones at 7,300. I think he'll have a chance to move up. I think he'll have a chance to finish top 3, top 5, something like that. And Chris Buescher, below 7K, gives you a lot of flexibility. Obviously, we'll have to see how the live leaderboard ends up shaking out and kind of where these guys end up qualifying. But I think there's a lot of value in that kind of mid to low 7K range that's going to let you get some of these more expensive guys in at the top.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things, especially when looking at NASCAR. I feel like you have the opportunity to get more value out of drivers based on their starting position, more so than in like other DFS, sports. Because here, like you could, for instance, Denny Hamlin is a perfect example. Like, yeah, he's the most expensive driver on the slate, but you're like guaranteed passing points. So, yeah. I mean, like, how do you pass that up?
Yeah, you just got to figure out if it's worth it. Because like I know last year, like Jimmy Johnson ended up starting in the back, and he was like over 11K. Obviously, if you're doing cash, those guys are all reliable. If you want to go with a more of a GPP slant, a guy like Joey Logano makes a lot of sense because when he pops, he really pops, and when he sucks, he completely falls apart. So he's got a wide range of outcomes. So if you're looking for reliable, he wouldn't be my guy for cash, but in a GPP contest, I think he could make some sense. Obviously, you want to add some stability in around him so you're not completely falling apart. Brian Twining, this was awesome. We got to talk our Daytona 500. We got 21 laps to go in the duel, so we can see how this pans out. Ryan Blaney currently in first place, looking ever so solid. Good luck with your bets. Good luck with your DFS. I think in the future we're gonna try and do some of these live, whether it's on Twitch or live on YouTube or both. So if you'd like to see that, if that is something that would interest you, if we went live and did these, we stream these live, let us know down in the comments. Also, let us know favorite bets, favorite DFS plays, and maybe an outright winner. Like who do you think is going to win this week? As always, mash that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe so you know when we go live, when we're talking content. If anything crazy happens, maybe we'll hop on and update you guys on whatever. But let us know who you like this weekend. Enjoy Sunday's race. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time.